Sarah has studied Thinking into Results with me. She has studied Lead the Field coaching with me. She has just joined my Inner Circle of Excellence program. Plus, she works in supports, many of you are in the room because of her, and supports me in coaching as well. I trust her implicitly. She knows what she's doing. And so I wanted to bring you up to share some of that story because I think it's amazing, even how we met, and what the last few years have been like for you, studying this material and working with me.
Well, where do I start? I think how we met. When Benita was up here speaking, I remembered at the Fly event, Benita, where after you were sort of like, I wanted to come and speak with you, and we chatted and didn't get to bed until very late. And I think that was because we were very much started in a similar vibration from a similar place, and I wasn't in a very good place. Felt lost in our business, didn't know whether it's what I wanted to still be doing. We had invested a lot of time and money in it. It had been our dream. It was my first baby, so to speak.
And this is, so your business is you sell machinery?
Yes, a machinery dealership.
Yep.
That we started from scratch. And just felt really lost and didn't know what to kind of do or anything like that. So I had been sent an invitation to go to see this lady speak about leading your field. And I thought, I probably should do that. Didn't look into it at all. Previously, my husband and I had studied 6 Minutes to Success through the Protégé Institute. And through that material, we had rebuilt the workshop part of our premises, which was really, really run down. And it was during that point that, in that program, well before I met Karen, that I had kind of started to tap into more of what I wanted to do, and it scared the life out of me that I literally dropped my pen and did not pick it up. Again, I was so frightened that I wouldn't be able to do it all. I wouldn't be able to be a mum, work in the business, and what would that mean for us? What would that mean for my marriage, for my relationship? Would we have to move? And so I just abandoned. I was so scared. So I literally, and it's only now that I realise that that's exactly what happened. I hit the terror barrier and I went straight back to bondage. But I really wasn't happy there, and I knew that I needed to do something. So everything seemed to be going against me that particular day. We'd been, 65 kilometres away at music with my children, and it was late, and I thought I was going to be late. And I remembered the one thing that Karen had said or wrote about this particular event was that, to be on time. And I was thinking, oh my goodness, I'm not going to get there. And I rang my husband on the way home, and I'm like, oh, do you think you can go to this thing? Because I'm not going to get there, it's too hard. And he's like, well, I kind of suppose I can. Is it like a women in business thing or something? And I was like, oh, and he's like, oh, I suppose I can. And then I think she was 11 at the time, 11-year-old daughter said, Mum, you'll be right, we're going to get there. Time expands to meet your needs. And here she's parroting back to me everything that I say, and I'm like, oh, I could just snot you right now. and I'm like, I had the floppiest arms. I was in such a cranky vibration that day, and she just kept showing me the cards of how I could, and I was throwing the ones of how I couldn't, like, oh no, well, it's late and we've got to feed the horses, and we've got to get the hay from the hay shed, and tea's not ready. And anyway, I pulled up at home. Scott was already home, and he never gets home early. He was there, and Alana's like, Mum, you need to go. You'll feel better when you get there. So off I go, begrudgingly, mind you. Drove into town. I knew I was right on the wire to when it was going to start. I felt completely just so scared walking into that room, which is crazy because I'm in my own hometown. Everybody that was there I knew, but I was so scared. What are they going to think of me walking in here? And thankfully, a teacher who I had done years ago done a talk with Year 10 students at the school, was sitting there, and she saw me, and because there was no chairs available, I couldn't see any. She said, "Sarah, come and sit here." And that was my saving moment. I just thought, oh, thank goodness for Rosie. And I sat down not knowing who this person was, what it was going to be about. Oh, rewind. I'd been looking for 2 weeks as to more Proctor Gallagher Institute programs to study, because I knew that had helped us previously. Sat down, Karen starts talking. I'm like, I don't think I could have got any closer to Bob Proctor if I tried. And I was literally like, well, there you go. I guess I know what I'm doing. I had no idea what program she was talking about or anything. I just thought, okay, whatever this brings me, I'm having. And it was at a time where, money was tight in our business, and not having the confidence to kind of invest in yourself was big for me. But I had booked that call, and I think you actually took a photo and sent it to Bob.
I did.
And
that
night, you took a photo and you sent it to him, and he replied. And I'm like, wow, that's really cool. So next day, jumped on a discovery call, and I literally was like, yep, okay, here's my card. And from that moment, like that, again, that decision, it just shifted everything for me. I think I started that day feeling really flat, not knowing what I wanted, where I wanted to go. And even though I hadn't really locked in on anything specific, the fact that I had committed to something and had honoured myself and my need for growth was what gave me so much. You can't explain those little defining moments. And here I am.
So was that 3 years ago? 2 years ago? Probably 2016.
Was it 2016?
I don't know.
I'll have to look back.
It's been a while. She's been around for a while. Tell us, what's your favourite lesson?
Oh, I love them all. I really do. I think there's a few that I use daily. They're my go-tos. I think definitely lesson 2 is something that...
The knowing doing gap?
Yeah. Mm-hmm. Is it? I'm pretty sure it's an activity in that lesson where you write out, maybe it's lesson 3, you write out your current situation, the thoughts, the dialogue that's going on in your mind. And this is probably the biggest thing, the main thing I do with my children, is if they're having a tough time, I say, hey, let's flip it Friday, we call it, but we flip it Friday a lot.
Yeah.
Not just Fridays. Is to write out that dialogue and then write out how you want it to be. And so they'll do that, and then we burn it or shred it or something. And now they do it on their own. And that is so empowering. Like, I know I've said before, it's the gift that keeps on giving, but it truly does. And for my children are nearly 14, 11 and 9. And for them to, especially my 13-year-old, for her to have those tools going through the challenging times that you face when you're growing up, and even for my 11-year-old and Leo as well, is so good. Like, you can't buy that. It comes from demonstration, and it comes from practice. And when they feel the shift in themselves from doing that, then they know then what to do when they're feeling a certain way. So that's one of them. Then the self-image script, like the self-image, really thinking and connecting with the person who has accomplished your goal, I think is that it really gives you something to orientate yourself with on a daily basis. And again, my clients are my kids. They, I will say, hey, is that coming from the place of the person who has accomplished your goal? And they go, oh, and they can check themselves. And I check myself, obviously, and sometimes they check me for me, which is great because we need that. And then, you know, the attitude, lesson 9, attitude, draw the stick person, thoughts, feelings, actions, and it really just goes, what's not in harmony here? Which part of these 3 pieces is not working? Where's the gap in my attitude around whatever it is? So yeah, they're the ones that I...
Love it. Tell us about when you started to really get into this and use it in your business and grow the business. You went through a transition period where you had some staff changes and, you know, things were shifting. How did you use the material to help you move through that changing time in that first big growth in the business?
Yeah, I think in the first probably 12 months of working with you, Karen, we had major shifts in our business. I think it was nearly up to, could be 5 key staff members kind of moved out of our business. And, you know, that, not all at once, but it was just one after the other. And I really saw that as, in the past, it would have completely, you know, we would have fallen in a heap over it and got really stressed. And I really saw it as an opportunity then, oh, great, I get to create the, you know, the idea and the description of the person that I really want here. Not that they were wrong or, you know, that they're bad people, but I also recognised too that because we were shifting and growing, that they're either going to join us or leave us based on where they're at. And it wasn't they're good or they're bad. It's just that, in a sense, it meant that it let them go do what they wanted to do as well. So it really helped us formulate the type of person that we wanted for a particular role. And I mean, my husband's really open and receptive to this work as well, which is great. And yeah, we could really hone in on that and just holding the picture of a key person. I remember a dealer principal telling me, he owns 5 dealerships, telling me that I would need 2 people for this particular role. I wouldn't find the skill set in the one person. And I was like, okay. It was like, challenge accepted. And I have. And, you know, they're not perfect. None of us are. But the growth that they have had whilst working in our business as well, based on how Scott and I operate, and that we're always looking within ourselves, how are we playing, how are we a part of what's happening here, that we actually do have a say around what's going on and how people are experiencing their employment with us. So, yeah, I guess it's seeing the opportunity in the adversity.
Absolutely. So moving from business to personal now, you had a goal of building a house. Tell us a little bit about that story, because I think this is a great story when you want something, but there is, like, it is a proper fantasy. There is no evidence that you can afford it, that you can have it, that you can get it, but you set the goal anyway. And I remember this time, and I was like, set the goal anyway, get it on your goal card, and you're living in that house that you built now. Tell us just a little bit about that story.
So this was right at the start. We had this block of land for nearly 10 years, I think, and we'd been always going to, you know, I'm going to do this and that'd be great. And we had some plans that we had done, but really hadn't committed to doing it. And we thought we could get the money. So at one point, I set the goal, and then we were like, oh, yes, you know, we should be able to do this. And then when we went to get the money, we didn't have enough. Well, Scott had already opened the gate on the whole idea, and the builder was pouring the slab. And we had enough to pay for the slab, but then it was like, what are we going to do? if we can't get all this money to finish this house, do we just pay for the slab and have a piece of concrete on 30 acres and,
Pull a caravan up.
Exactly. And I was like, oh my goodness. So that was literally, we were well into the terror barrier in that moment, and we were probably nearly $100,000 short. And it was just, and we weren't building anything really elaborate. It was just, yeah, so I think it was that when you find yourself there, we'd burnt the ships basically, and it was, yes, we could have just gone, pulled the pin on the whole thing and just paid for our slab of concrete and been a victim, so to speak, or it was like, okay, how are we going to do this? We will do this and we will find a way. And I think there was a part of our business that we were into doing some contract deep ripping, and we'd been doing that for a bit, and it was great and it was bringing money into the business, but it wasn't something like a core part of our business. And I think in that moment when we were put there, it was like, do we want this or not? So prior to that, we didn't consider that as something that we would sell, that machinery, that we would get out of that. And being put at that point, it was like, well, do we want it? No, let's sell it. And I think Scott had it sold like within a week.
What I love about that story is that you'd burnt the ships behind you, and there was a decision point of, are we going to go all in on this, and how can we do it? So rather than thinking, oh, we can't do it, we don't have the money, you flipped your mind and all of your mental focus to how we will do it. It's like going back to that question, the importance of decision. You can say, I want the house, I'd like it, but have you actually made an absolute committed decision to get it? And probably you had to remake that decision. You said we're going to get the house, then you didn't have the money, and then it was like, we need to make the decision again that we will get the money. We are building the house, not finishing it became not an option for you.
Yeah, I think I was terrified, absolutely terrified. It just made me feel so sick. And I think in this instance, the fear of what other people would think if we didn't build the house actually was what made me go, we have got to do this. I cannot live with myself if I've got a piece of concrete on the, that's just not happening. So I thank Scott for opening the gate on that.
And Sarah said to me a few weeks ago, we were talking about this, and she said, do you want to share that?
Yeah, it's, when you first set that goal and you think, this is what I want, and you you think that it's really big, and like with the house, it's lovely and I love it and it's beautiful, but now it's kind of like, well, I actually could have asked for more. I could have asked for more and I could have achieved it. So looking back, it's kind of like I actually kind of played a little small.
I think I loved it when you said it, because I had one of those moments when we were deciding to leave. I was studying some of the Thomas Troward work, and I've shared this with you. This particular paragraph, when we look out upon our environment and we realise, I'm paraphrasing, that we've created this kingdom. And I had a aha moment. I mean, we know this. This is like when the penny keeps dropping, like the consciousness keeps expanding. And I also had this moment of like, well, I've created this, so why don't I now create for this? And that same moment of like, I could have asked for more. Why didn't I ask for more 3 years ago? Because you see what you've created in your kingdom and the world that you live in, and you realise that you have created it when you're that consciously connected to knowing that I have created this. And when you then look upon the environment you've created and you realise, I could have asked for more. If I was more, if the picture was clearer, if I had, and then you kind of go, right, well, I've had this experience now in seeing that I could do this, well, let's do this. And that was one of my little turning points in making the decision to sell our little cottage and, you know, create space for the bigger house, was to go, well, I wanted this 4 years ago as a project and we got it and it's done now. So ask for the next thing, but ask for what you want, which I love. What about in your relationship with Scott? You spoke a lot about how you use it with your kids. Have you and Scott ever really had, you know, you fallen back on this to help you, as because you're in the business together, you're husband and wife, like you've got a lot going on. So how have you used the material in your relationship?
I think we're very fortunate in that right from the get-go, well, we created our business before we got married and had kids, and I think I love working, like I do love working there. I loved working there and with him and all of that. So I think from the get-go, the relationship on that was good. I've heard a lot of stories about how husband-wives partnerships don't work and all of that, and I'm like, I'm glad I don't have that belief.
Yeah.
I think, Benita, you asked the question of how do people go when the people around them aren't into the same thing or aren't having that growth. And I immediately thought, you know, yes, Scott, he has done this, he does this work, and he doesn't do it like I do it.
Neither
and
does my husband.
That's fine, you know, and even with my, you know, we've got over 20 employees. I speak the language, I live it, I am it, and they are direct recipients of it. Even though they're not studying it, at some point the shift happens and you see it. And, you know, things take time. You talk about your family, Karen, and how it's taken, you know, however many years for them to engage. And sometimes it just takes that time and trusting that if you just be in the space and honouring yourself and do it for you, that everybody else will benefit. And, you know, I've done that, you know, like with Scott as well. There were times where I was frustrated and I'm thinking, far out, we've paid this money. You know, can you just not sit down and do it with me? You told me you'd do it with me, and here I am on my own doing it. And then I thought, well, it's not about him. I came here for me, and I can't resent him for not wanting to sit down and study the way I do. So I'm just going to do it. And when we hold the space, when we touch lightly, which is another one of Thomas Troward's, you know, touching lightly on the people and the things in our environment, just knowing that every time we engage with it, it is going to have a ripple effect. We don't necessarily need to see it to know that it's working.
Yep, absolutely. Give us a study tip, a way you like to study, when you like to study, something that people can leave with today.
Biggest study tip is make a committed decision on the time that you're going to do it. Don't leave it to chance in your day. Like, lock it in. Time block it in, and, you know, and that is probably the biggest thing, because if we leave it and go, oh, well, you know, sometimes, like, I'm dedicated, I do it every morning. That's my routine. I get up, that's become part of my day. If I've got to get up earlier to fit it in, I get up earlier to fit it in. I didn't this morning because I had to get up at 4 o'clock. But I did it on the plane.
She did it on the plane.
I did it on the plane. You know, I took that opportunity. That plane trip was great.
Yeah, I know, 2 hours.
Because I just, like, locked in. But, you know, I think that's the biggest thing, is to be committed on a time that is going to fit. Like, look at your day and look at, where am I willing to put this?
Yeah.
And lock in on it.
Perfect. Now let's talk about coaching, because a lot of you have asked questions about what's next after TIR. I know, Jane, I got an email from you last week. You have done Lead the Field coaching, and you've just started Inner Circle of Excellence. So what was it like transitioning from Thinking into Results into the new Lead the Field coaching program, and why did you make that decision?
Thinking into Results, I absolutely loved it. Karen, then I was pretty much nearly finished when you had Louis.
Yes.
And you were going into hospital. And I was really looking for more. Like, I think I was I was looking for more as I was going through thinking into results, and then I was really looking for more. And I still engage in thinking into results daily. Like, that is my foundation. That is what I do. I do it once a day, and then my other study comes of an evening. So, but yeah, I was looking for more. I wanted more. I wanted to expand my understanding and really be able to use the material. And I also wanted to work with Karen again, like closely again. I kind of didn't want it to end, because the way she facilitates the material, the way she shows you how to apply it to your day-to-day life, you don't get anywhere else. And I'm not just saying that. When Karen went and had Louis, I was at a point where I really wanted more, and her email with Lead the Field actually went to my spam, which I didn't find until after. And I invested in further coaching through the Proctor Gallagher Institute. Now, I continued to do that, but as soon as I'd made that decision, I was like, oh my goodness, no, I want to work with Karen. So then I went and invested more money with Lead the Field. So I had, I probably kind of pulled back on thinking into results for a bit, and I did the Bob Proctor coaching, which is a 13-month coaching program, and Lead the Field. But I locked in on Lead the Field because of the way Karen facilitates it, and valuable information in the other, but it was a lot of smaller programs that you just study over 13 months, as opposed to somebody really getting in deep. You know, you're in Australia, you're so accessible, and that was, so I'm grateful for that experience, even though it cost me a bit of money. I'm grateful for it because I can share, and I honestly truly know the difference in what you receive through working with somebody so closely. So yeah, Lead the Field. I love Lead the Field. I probably haven't tapped into it as much lately, but again, Greener Pastures was like one of those lessons that I don't know, I just loved it. Every time I read it, you just feel so connected with it, and it just shows you that we can always be looking over the fence, but what have we got right in front of us? And what have we got within us more than that? You know, like, what's in you that you're not honouring right now? That you're thinking, I need to go there to feel better. I need to go and do that. And it's sort of like, really look within.
Absolutely. And then you've recently just joined the Inner Circle of Excellence, which didn't exist. So in this...
I'm forcing your growth.
Yeah, I know. Everyone, they keep asking me, what's next? I've created all these new programs. But you also tiptoed around that for a little bit. Like, that was out for a few months before you called me and you're like, I might need to do that. So tell us about that, because we'll talk about these programs in a little more detail in a moment, but that's another step up. It's a significantly more investment than anything you've spent before. Why did you decide to do that? What was it? Because it's not about the money or anything. It's, you obviously reached a level where you knew I either want more, or like, what went on for you that day when you sent me that text message and then said, I wish I didn't send you this text message?
I said, I'm not talking to you about this.
I think that's how I'm not talking to you about this, but.
I'll go back to Lead the Field. I had just come up and spent... It wasn't long. You had the Millionaire Mastermind Power Up event up
at the Gold Coast.
Gold Coast. And I went home and the Lead the Field thing was floating around, and you sent me a message, something along the lines of, how will you feel if you do it, and how will you feel if you don't? And so those words play through my mind a lot when I'm coming to a point. I think, yes, Karen, thank you for that. So I'd kind of seen Inner Circle, but I really hadn't kind of consciously even thought about it. I'm not sure why. Obviously, I'm fortunate in that I get to work with Karen closely as part of her team. And so I was tapping into that, and life's pretty full. And I think then I just all of a sudden had this thought of, oh my goodness, I have to do that. Like, there is no other option. Like, that was what I had to do. And it just kind of hit me, and then it was like, oh, I'm not talking to you about that because I know what you're going to say to me. How will you feel if you do it, and how will you feel if you don't? And it was a significant investment, but it was amazing. It was invigorating, really entering into that, and it just took me right back to when I first started. And it was a lot more powerful than that. But again, like, I know what people are going through when they honour themselves and they take that step that's scary. And I think if you don't continue to study, you don't continue to grow. And I knew that I was at a point where I had kind of like, what do I do now?
Yeah, definitely. And the reason why I asked that question, how will you feel if you do, how will you feel if you don't, because I'm getting you to tap into self-image. Where do you see yourself? What do you see yourself in harmony with? We spoke about this on the phone the other day. So you can not do it, but when you make the decision not to, how are you going to feel about that? Are you going to feel, I kind of know I should, but I'm scared of the money, or I'm scared of the time, and how will I feel if I do it? And sometimes we tiptoe around a decision and we say, should I? Maybe I will, I'll think about it. When you go all the way to the no, you've got your answer. When you take it off the table, I'm absolutely not doing this. Whether it's the C-type goal, whether it's the coaching, when you take it off the table and you think about the no, you've got your answer. Because you actually do know, but I want it. Oh, I want to be a part of it. Or I know that that's where I need to go next. And I knew, like, Inner Circle, it's a $20,000 coaching program. So, I knew that would be a step up for you to say, not about the money, but I'm worth it. I'm at that level. I'm at that level now where I want to be in the inner circle of excellence. And you said to me, when you've got in the car, like, you made a recording of it. Tell everyone about that.
Yeah, I did. That feeling, and I actually, it was interesting because I had just been on the phone not long, Michael. I had just been on the phone with you and you had just signed up. Well, you sent me that message and I was just like, that is so good. And then I said to you, record that. Record how you're feeling right now so that you can tap back into that vibration, your voice's vibration, and record it so you can listen to it later. And then I was buzzing and, I'd kind of, not that I needed Scott's approval or anything, but, I wanted, I spoke with him about I hadn't had a chance to speak with him and he was like, yep, cool. And so then when I, signed up, I thought, I need to do what I just told Michael to do. So I recorded myself as I was driving, a bit illegal, as I was driving into, to pick the kids up from school, and it was amazing. And to now have that, to really get into the vibration of where I was at when I made that decision is so powerful.
Yeah.
And honestly, it's not about the money. It's about the shift that you have in self-image. And you cannot outperform your self-image.